Have you ever wondered why that person who claimed to love you so deeply suddenly became cold, distant, almost like they were looking at a stranger? Why the same person who once hung on your every word now seems irritated by your very presence? Why love that felt so real, so consuming, so destined, turned into indifference or even resentment? Here's the truth that will shake you to your core. People don't fall in love with you. They never did. They fall in love with what you represent in their unconscious mind. And the moment you stop being that symbol, the moment your humanity shows through the cracks of their projection, the love dies. This isn't romantic poetry. This isn't wishful thinking. This is Carl Jung's brutal revelation about human psychology, and once you understand it, you'll never look at love the same way again. But here's what's even more disturbing. You've been doing the exact same thing to others your entire life, and you don't even realize it. So let me ask you directly, looking into your eyes right now, are you ready to face the uncomfortable truth about why people really fall in love with you? Are you prepared to shatter every romantic illusion you've been carrying? Because what I'm about to reveal will change everything you thought you knew about attraction, connection, and human relationships. The reason people fall in love with you has nothing to do with your personality, your looks, your charm, or your heart. It has everything to do with their unconscious need to complete themselves through you. And that, my friend, is both the most powerful and most dangerous thing you need to understand about love. You've been lied to your entire life about what love actually is. Society, movies, songs, even your own family have sold you this beautiful fairy tale that love is about finding your other half, your soulmate, someone who completes you. But Carl Jung saw through this romantic delusion. He understood that what we call love is often something much darker and more unconscious, psychological parasitism. When someone falls in love with you, they're not seeing you. They're seeing their own missing piece reflected in your being. You become the living embodiment of everything they lack, everything they've repressed, everything they desperately need but cannot develop within themselves. Think about the last person who claimed to love you deeply. What did they praise about you? Your confidence when they were insecure? Your emotional depth when they were disconnected from their feelings? Your freedom when they felt trapped? Your stability when they were chaotic? They weren't loving you. They were loving the solution to their internal problems. You became their psychological medication, their missing puzzle piece, their escape from the work of becoming whole. And here's the cruelest part. The moment you stopped being their perfect projection, the moment you showed weakness where they needed strength, emotion where they needed logic, chaos where they needed stability, the love began to die. Because it was never love. It was dependency disguised as devotion. Jung called this anima and animus projection, the unconscious images of the opposite gender that live within our psyche, waiting to be activated by someone who fits the blueprint. When you match their internal template, the attraction feels magical, destined, cosmic. But it's not. It's their psyche recognizing its own reflection. But here's what's even more unsettling. You do this too. Every person you've ever fallen in love with was carrying something you needed, something you lacked, something that completed your own psychological puzzle. You weren't loving them either. You were loving what they represented in your inner world. Let me tell you something that will make you uncomfortable. Your most passionate relationships, the ones that felt like destiny, were built on mutual self-deception. Two people desperately trying to use each other to avoid the terrifying work of becoming complete individuals. Carl Jung was ruthless about this. He saw that most of what we call great love is actually two incomplete people creating a temporary illusion of wholeness. The intensity you felt wasn't love. It was the relief of finally finding someone to carry the burden of your undeveloped self. You know that relationship that consumed you, the one where you lost yourself completely. That wasn't beautiful. That was psychological fusion. You stopped being you and became a function in someone else's psyche while they became a function in yours. And when the fusion broke, because it always breaks, both of you felt like you were dying. Not because you lost your soulmate, but because you lost your external source of completion. You were forced to face the terrifying reality that you are responsible for your own wholeness. This is why breakups feel like psychological death. This is why some people become obsessed, stalking, unable to let go. They're not missing the person, they're missing their missing piece. They're addicted to the completion that person provided. But here's the shadow truth that nobody talks about. The people who fall in love with you most intensely are often the ones who will hurt you most deeply, because their love is not based on seeing you, it's based on using you. And when you inevitably fail to be their perfect projection, their love turns to resentment, criticism, even hatred. The same person who once told you that you were perfect will later attack those exact same qualities. Your confidence becomes arrogance. Your sensitivity becomes weakness. Your independence becomes selfishness. This isn't inconsistency. This is the natural progression of projection-based relationships. After studying thousands of patients and his own psyche for decades, Jung arrived at a shocking conclusion. There is only one reason people fall in love with you, and it has nothing to do with love, as most people understand it. People fall in love with you because you carry their disowned shadow. Let me explain this in a way that will change how you see every relationship in your life. Your shadow, according to Jung, is everything you've rejected about yourself, the qualities, emotions, and aspects of your personality that you've deemed unacceptable. Most people spend their entire lives running from their shadow, projecting it onto others, denying its existence within themselves. But here's the psychological twist. We are irresistibly drawn to people who embody our disowned shadow qualities. The very things we reject in ourselves become magnetic when we see them in others. The shy person falls for the extrovert because extroversion lives in their shadow. The overly rational person becomes obsessed with the emotional one because their own emotions have been repressed. The people pleaser is drawn to the one who sets boundaries because they've disowned their own ability to say no. You think they love your confidence? They love it because they've rejected their own. You think they adore your creativity. They're attracted to it because they've abandoned their own artistic nature. You think they're drawn to your emotional depth? It's because they've been running from their own feelings their entire life. This is why the attraction feels so intense, so irrational, so beyond their control. They're not falling in love with you, they're falling in love with the parts of themselves they lost along the way. But here's the trap. Once they integrate these shadow qualities, once they develop confidence, creativity, or emotional depth within themselves, you lose your magnetic power over them. The projection withdraws, the spell breaks, the love dies. This is why so many relationships die after a few years. It's not because people grew apart. It's because one person integrated what they were projecting onto the other. They no longer needed their partner to carry their disowned qualities. Now I want you to look at your own life with brutal honesty. Think about the people you've been most attracted to, the ones who made your heart race, the ones you couldn't get out of your mind. What did they have that you didn't? What qualities did they embody that you had rejected in yourself? Were you drawn to their emotional availability because you were emotionally closed? Their rebellious nature because you were overly compliant? Their stability because you were chaotic? This is the unconscious game everyone plays without realizing it. We fall in love with our own rejected potential, externalized in another person. We use relationships to avoid the terrifying work of developing ourselves. And here's what's even more disturbing. We often choose partners who will help us avoid growth rather than encourage it. We're attracted to people who will enable our weaknesses, who will carry our rejected qualities so we don't have to develop them ourselves. The codependent chooses the narcissist because the narcissist will make all the decisions they're afraid to make. The emotional person chooses the rational one because they don't want to develop their own logical thinking. The giver chooses the taker because it allows them to avoid receiving, which feels too vulnerable. But Jung saw something that most people miss. These aren't mistakes. They're the psyche's attempt to become whole. Every relationship, even the dysfunctional ones, is an opportunity for integration, for reclaiming your shadow, for becoming complete within yourself. The problem is that most people resist this growth. They prefer to stay incomplete and use others as external prosthetics rather than do the difficult work of individuation. Here's something that will explain every failed relationship in your life. The love you received was always conditional on you, continuing to embody their shadow projection. As long as you remained their symbol, their missing piece, their completion, you were adored. But the moment you showed different aspects of yourself, the moment you grew beyond their projection, the moment you stopped being their psychological function, the love began to withdraw. This is why you felt like you had to perform in relationships, like you couldn't be your full self, like you were walking on eggshells. You intuitively understood that their love was contingent on you staying within the narrow confines of their projection. And you did the same to them. You loved them as long as they carried your shadow, as long as they remained your missing piece. But when they tried to grow, to change, to become more complete individuals, you felt threatened. Their growth meant your loss of external completion. This is the unconscious contract most relationships are built on. I'll love you as long as you remain incomplete in the ways that complement my incompleteness. It's a psychological prison disguised as romance. Jung called this the participation mystique, a primitive psychological state where two people become so fused that individuality disappears. Most people think this fusion is the highest form of love, but Jung saw it as a developmental arrest, a refusal to grow into individual wholeness. Now let me ask you something that might sting. How many times have you felt exhausted in relationships? How often have you felt like you were carrying more than your fair share of the emotional load? How frequently have you found yourself being the strong one, the stable one, the understanding one, while your partner remained fragmented? This is what happens when you become someone's missing piece. You stop being a whole person and become a psychological function. You carry their confidence while they remain insecure. You provide their emotional stability while they stay chaotic. You offer their missing strength while they remain weak. But here's the cruel irony. The more you give them what they're missing, the more they need you to remain incomplete. If you carry their confidence, they never develop their own. If you provide their emotional regulation, they never learn to manage their own feelings. If you offer them missing boundaries, they never learn to protect themselves. You become addicted to being needed, and they become addicted to needing you. It feels like love, but it's actually a sophisticated form of mutual psychological slavery, and the most painful part? When you finally get tired of carrying their missing pieces, when you demand that they become whole individuals, they often leave because they never wanted you. They wanted what you provided, and when you stop providing it, you become useless to them. This is why so many people who describe themselves as givers in relationship end up bitter and alone. They spent their lives being what others needed, instead of being who they actually were. They became so good at carrying other people's shadows that they lost touch with their own light. I want you to picture this scenario because it's happened to you, whether you realize it or not. You're in a relationship with someone who adores you. They tell you constantly how amazing you are, how you complete them, how they can't live without you. They love your strength, your independence, your confidence. You feel like you found someone who truly sees you. But then life happens. You have a moment of weakness. You need support. You show vulnerability. You reveal insecurity. You ask for help. And something shifts. The person who claimed to love you starts to seem uncomfortable. They pull back. They become critical. They suggest you're not yourself. They tell you to get it together. They seem almost disgusted by your humanity. What happened? Did they stop loving you? Were they lying about their feelings? No, their projection broke. You stopped being their symbol of strength and revealed yourself as a complete human being with your own needs, fears, and vulnerabilities. You shattered their psychological use of you as their missing piece. This is the moment love dies in projection-based relationships. Not because feelings change, but because the unconscious contract is broken. You're no longer fulfilling your function as their external completion. Jung observed this pattern repeatedly. Passionate relationships that die the moment one person shows their full humanity. The lover becomes the enemy not because they changed, but because they revealed that they were always a complex, complete individual rather than a simple psychological symbol. This is why authentic love is so rare. Most people aren't capable of loving another person. They can only love what that person represents in their unconscious. When the representation crumbles, so does the love. But here's where Jung offers hope in the midst of this psychological carnage. Once you understand this dynamic, you can free yourself from it. You can stop being someone's missing piece, and you can stop using others as yours. The key is individuation. The process of becoming whole within yourself. When you integrate your own shadow, when you develop the qualities you've been projecting onto others, when you become complete as an individual, you stop being vulnerable to projection-based relationships. You also stop creating them. When you're whole within yourself, you don't need others to carry your missing pieces. You can appreciate their qualities without needing to possess them. You can love them without needing to complete yourself through them. But this comes at a price that most people aren't willing to pay: loneliness. When you become whole, you become less needy, less available for others' projections, less willing to carry their missing pieces. Many people will find you less attractive because you're no longer offering to complete them. The incomplete find the complete threatening. Those who live through projection find individual wholeness intimidating. You'll lose relationships, but you'll gain something more valuable: the capacity for authentic love. Here's Jung's final revelation about love, and it's both beautiful and terrifying. The only person who can truly love you is someone who doesn't need you to complete them. Someone who has done their own shadow work, integrated their own rejected qualities, and become whole within themselves. This person won't fall in love with you because you carry their missing pieces. They'll love you because they can see your complete humanity without needing to use it for their own psychological completion. But here's the catch. To attract this kind of love, you must become this kind of person first. You must integrate your own shadow, reclaim your own projected qualities, and become whole within yourself. You must stop looking for someone to complete you and complete yourself. You must stop being available as someone else's missing piece and become your own whole puzzle. This is the loneliest path you'll ever walk, but it's also the most liberating. Because on the other side of this individuation process, you'll discover something that most people never experience. Love that doesn't require you to be anything other than exactly who you are. Love that doesn't die when you show your full humanity. Love that doesn't withdraw when you grow and change. Love that doesn't require you to carry anyone's shadow or project your own onto others. Love that is actually love, not just unconscious psychological parasitism dressed up in romantic poetry. So now I'll ask you the question that will determine the rest of your romantic life. Are you willing to give up being loved for who you pretend to be in order to be loved for who you actually are? Are you ready to stop being someone's missing piece and become your own complete person? Are you prepared to walk through the loneliness of individuation to reach the other side where authentic love becomes possible? Because that's the choice Jung is offering you. You can continue playing the projection game, being loved conditionally for the shadow qualities you carry for others, always walking on eggshells, always performing, always at risk of losing love the moment you show your full humanity. Or you can do the work. You can integrate your shadow. You can become whole. You can stop being attractive to people who want to use you and become attractive to people who can actually see you. The first path is easier, but leads to endless cycles of broken relationships and conditional love. The second path is more difficult, but leads to the kind of love that poets write about but rarely experience. Most people choose the first path because they're afraid of being alone. But Jung would tell you that you're already alone. You're just using relationships to avoid facing that reality. True love begins when you stop running from your own completeness and start becoming the person you were meant to be, shadow and light integrated, whole and authentic, and no longer available to be anyone's missing piece. The person who falls in love with that version of you, that's the person worth loving back. The question is, are you brave enough to become that person, even if it means losing everyone who only loved your fragments? If this message is stirring something deep within you, if it's making you question everything you thought you knew about love, write in the comments, I choose wholeness. Let's see how many people are ready to stop being missing pieces and start being complete individuals. And remember, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. Make sure it's based on truth, not projection. If you found value in this deep dive into Jung's psychology of love, subscribe for more content that challenges everything you think you know about human relationships, consciousness, and the path to authentic living.